Hello, how's it going? In today's video, I'm covering the Siege of Blackrock Spire and the destruction of the Dark Portal from Chronicle Volume 2. So let's go! Orgrim stood in Blackrock Spire and watched as the Alliance forces poured into the burning steppes. There were a lot of them, and they looked well pissed off. They arranged themselves around the Horde stronghold and then began their relentless siege. The war chief was kinda hoping their fortress gates would hold for the time being. The Dragon Riders still hadn't arrived from Grim Batol, nor had the Blacktooth Grin clan, nor had the mental reinforcements from Draenor. Things weren't looking great. Orgrim himself was absolutely full of doubts, but he wasn't going to let himself give up. Not now, not ever. This was about more than glory. This was about restoring honour to his race and ensuring its survival. There had only ever been two choices in his mind: fight and secure a home on Azeroth, or return to Draenor and just die. And as far as orcs are concerned, if they're going to die, it'll be in honourable combat, not because they starved to death on a dying world. That would just be cowardly and shit. He turned to his troops and called for one last charge. We are the unstoppable Horde. We've already conquered the Draenei, we took Stormwind, we've won countless victories against a buttload of foes. This world is ours for the taking. All we need to do is kill all those knobs outside. So as the Alliance siege engines bombarded the gates to the mountain, they suddenly flew open, and thousands of angry hordes spilled out. Orgrim himself led the charge. To be fair, he was under no illusion that they were going to win this fight with sheer force. They were outnumbered, but he had a plan. He'd observed human culture over these past few years, and he'd seen that they revered and idolised their leaders, much like the orcs. Killing a chieftain was often the best way to break the spirit of an orc clan, pretty much the same for humans. So he cut a path towards Lothar, and he made it to the Alliance commander pretty easily, because most of the humans were still wondering what the bloody hell was going on. The Horde's suicidal charge had been a bit of a surprise, to be honest. When Orgrim reached Lothar, the Supreme Commander didn't flee. He met the war chief in single combat, just like any honourable warrior would. At first, neither of them gave ground, but it wasn't long before Orgrim gained the upper hand. He was just stronger. #deal with it. Orgrim's hammer shattered Lothar's greatsword, and the human fell to his knees. And then Orgrim crushed his skull, and very much like the real world, that's pretty fatal, so he died. This moment inspired the orcs, but caused sorrow and despair in the humans. Looked like the war chief's gambit had paid off. The Alliance soldiers had lost their will to fight, but there was one soldier who had not lost his will to fight. Turalyon. He was a little bit angry. The holy light radiated from him, which kinda blinded everyone. The fighting stopped as both sides were like, "What are you doing, you knobhead? Can't bloody see anything." Turalyon then grabbed Lothar's broken blade and knocked Orgrim unconscious. The paladin then turned to the Alliance and was like, "Stand tall." He reminded them that throughout every trial the Alliance had faced, Lothar had never hesitated. They were all the sons of Lothar or something. Now was not the time for mourning and uncertainty. Now was the time to fight for the Alliance. And the Alliance soldiers were like, "He's bloody right, you know." Hope burned bright and the Alliance crashed into the Horde, and the orcs were kind of forced to cheese it. Again, they fled in pretty much every direction and ended up scattered, but some seemed to know exactly where they were going. Terran Gorefiend and his Death Knights led a number of the orcs back to the Dark Portal. The few that remained behind continued to fight, hoping for an honourable death, but they wouldn't find it, because they were taken prisoner. Turalyon and the Alliance decided to go after those that had fled south towards the Dark Portal. They were eager for vengeance, but also eager to find out the exact location of this weird gateway that had caused all of this crap in the first place. They caught up with the retreating orcs in the Black Morass, and one of the most brutal battles of the Second War took place. The Death Knights used their necromantic arts, which was pretty spooky. It wasn't enough to defeat Turalyon and his forces, but it did allow them to slip through the portal back to Draenor. At this point, Turalyon decided not to pursue them. He'd already pushed his forces far enough. Plus, who knows what's waiting for them on the other side? I mean, common sense would have told him it's probably orcs and Death Knights, but okay. There was really only one thing left to do now: destroy the portal. So he called on Khadgar and other magi, and they got to work. They weaved a great spell and gradually unravelled it. Eventually, the rift slammed shut, and the backlash of energy caused the portal's stone frame to explode in arcane light. And there was a slight pause for a second, and then everybody just kind of went apeshit with excitement and celebration. It was over. The Second War. Finished. Done. People laughed. People cried. The Alliance had bloody won something for a change. And we're leaving it there! In the next Volume 2 video, we'll go into a little bit of detail of the costs this Second War had on both sides. Probably going to finish this chapter next week, and then we'll be into the final chapter of Volume 2. As always, thanks very much to those of you who support the channel as patrons. Links in the description if anyone's interested in supporting the channel in that way. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!